prime ministers never get directly involved in this sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
So is this just a political ploy from Mick Lynch?
I think so. I think what we're seeing here really is Mick Lynch kind of starting to sweat a little bit. I think he is under pressure, particularly from the lack of support he might be seeing from the public at the moment. This is our first Christmas we all have had in 2 or 3 years without rules, without restrictions. You know, for travel, there's no limit on who you can see. You won't feel guilty going to visit your grandma because of COVID. And they are holding the country to ransom, and people will not be able to travel. I don't know about you, but I plan on going out of London pretty soon, around next weekend. We've also got the added thing of businesses. Christmas time is so important for the economy of small and medium businesses, the hospitality industry. I've got my Christmas party coming up this week. And yet, if there's going to be all these strikes, it's going to impact people whether they'll be able to even get to them, meaning that the money that might be spent over the bar at your local Christmas party or just going out for dinner, people are going to be less likely to do that.
Well, I think people are going to opt out of the odd Christmas party, aren't they?
It's just too
They're going
complicated.
to fail to do something that they wouldn't. Yes, exactly. People are fed up.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure at the moment when you go out and talk, they're not necessarily fed up with the unions. They're just fed up that nothing can be agreed. They're fed up with the government. I mean, even die-hard Tories are fed up with the government.
Completely. So it was in the 2019 manifesto that the government would ensure that services would continue despite striking action. It's now the end of 2022. This is 3 years on, and we've seen no moving action on this. We've also known these strikes have been coming for months at this point, and only now we're saying that the armed forces might be brought in for these emergency
Yeah, but
sectors.
even the armed forces are fed up with that.
Well, exactly. We've seen in the Times yesterday, actually, I thought it was a great piece, the General Lord Dallatt, who used to be the head of the army, essentially, coming through and saying, this is ridiculous. You cannot have this over-reliance on the army every time you need to get something done with your political issues. The army have got their own things that they need to do. Obviously, they were brought in for COVID, distributing the vaccines and helping to get petrol around the country. Now we're seeing them having to be trained up very quickly for these skilled jobs on border force or potentially driving ambulances around, things like this. That's not the role of the army. And quite frankly, these soldiers, it's actually illegal for them to strike. They're on very low salaries and they're having to fill in for people who are being paid much more than them. I mean, it is outrageous.
But with all this, we might all be fed up. It might be very frustrating. But there's, you know, if the unions are determined to carry on, and we've got to be careful, haven't we, that we don't lump all the unions into the same basket in a way, because they're coming from actually quite different positions. I mean, the one thing that strikes me, I mean, Mick Lynch is Mick Lynch.
Yes.
Right? OK. And you can have a view on that or not. But then, you know, Dave Ward from the CWU, the post office workers strike, well, I mean, he makes actually quite a different argument, because it's not all about the pay. They've been given a decent pay offer. It's about, you know, the conditions and the terms that they're working under. And we need to draw distinctions, don't we?
We do. I think one thing that we're seeing from these strikes is that it's potentially not going in favour of these industries. So the postal workers, the railways, these are essentially declining industries. When we look at the Royal Mail, they were peaking at about 20 billion in 2004. They're now only bringing in around 8 billion, with sort of annual 8% decline in their industry. And I think these strikes really bring that to the surface. As you'll see on all the front pages today, there is a certain different strike going on. And I think it's highlighting that we need reform. We need modernisation. People aren't using the railways in the same way. We're simply not using the Royal Mail in the same way anymore. And I think that they might not be getting the answers that they want because reform needs to happen. If it was any other industry, any other business model, reform would have already happened. And so that's what we're going to be seeing in the coming months.